Good evening. I'm so pleased to be able to have Kasie Campbell, our artist, here talking to us all the way from Edmonton, Alberta. She is an award-winning visual artist who received her Bachelor of Fine Arts degree majoring in sculpture at the University of Alberta. And her work integrates a variety of mediums, including sculpture, photography, and installation with performance. Notably, she's exhibited her work throughout Canada and internationally with exhibitions in New Jersey, Chicago, New York, and most recently, Estonia. The exhibit that we're featuring at ARTSPLACE Gallery in Annapolis Royal, Nova Scotia is entitled MATRILINEAL THREADS. And it's a performative sculptural installation that was created from 2016 to 2018 in collaboration with her late mother, Ginette Lund. So that's all I'm going to say right now. I'm going to let Kasie take it from here.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Ted. I'm delighted to be here to share a little bit about my experience working with my mom, Ginette Lund, on this very dear to me collaboration titled Matrilineal Threads. And before I get into it, I always like to start by introducing my family. They're a really important part of my studio practice. It's definitely a teamwork dynamic and a commitment on everybody's part to be living with an artist. The sculptures live with us and are kind of like additional family members. And pre-COVID, my daughter would make me cover them up before her friends would come over. This is a picture of myself and my oldest daughter, Mavi, and my husband. And we're pictured here wearing ugly Christmas sweaters that my mom had knitted us for Christmas in 2016. Every year for Christmas, my mom would knit everybody in our family these really beautiful, ugly Christmas sweaters for all of 11 of us at the time. So she would work all year long on Christmas gifts. And to be honest, she's the only person that I've ever known who could simultaneously laugh at a movie and count her stitches while knitting. It was really impressive. And this is my family now. So 9 years later, we had our second daughter, Ginette Campbell. And she's also a great little studio assistant like her older sister, Mavi. And this is my daughter, Mavi, to the left, being embraced by the hands in the ARTSPLACE gallery. And my youngest daughter, Edie, to the right, who's helping me get everything in the crates to ship to you guys. And so before I begin going any further, I would like to share just a quick and short video doc that was done by CBC Arts in 2018. So I'm going, please bear with me. I'm hoping this works. Can you see my new screen? It's good. She sends this picture of this crocheted boob and she goes, "How long do you want that tit?" And I was like, what? Oh no. She just had so much fun with it. We just had so much fun. Crochet is they're generally objects of comfort, and they're given to us by those we love, and they're functional. And so we wanted to take that notion and sort of flip it on its head. So I started out doing a series of pretty rough and provocative sketches, and then I would just send them to my mom via text or email, and she would just make them through crochet and just bring these two-dimensional images to life. So it just really made sense to go ahead and do a series of sculptural crocheted works. I just thought it would be really fun to sort of push my mom a little bit, and she totally got into it, which was the best. I guess I drew this sketch of this costume that I could wear for performative purposes. And so I did this really rough sketch of the front and the back. And then she
came over to me with a measuring tape and just measured me everywhere. And then like 2 weeks later, I get this text and it's a picture of her with this mask on her face. And then I'm like, oh, okay, that's great. I have a few videos of my mom crocheting and knitting, and I love to look back at them. I'm glad I took them. My grandmother used to knit and crochet us beautiful baby sweaters and blankets, and so did my mom. And so there's just a long history of gifting and receiving of hand knit and hand crocheted items in our family. And my grandmother taught my mother, and my mother taught me. And so it just really made sense to go ahead and do a series of sculptural crocheted works. This was sort of hanging in a tent at the legislature grounds, and it was a little bit closer to the floor, but when the wind would come in, it would sort of lift it up and the hands would glide across the floor and then sort of come back down really softly, and it was almost like it was breathing, which was really interesting. My mom passed away on May 12th, which was her mom's birthday. Growing up with my mom, I never would have characterized her as a sick person, ever. She suffered with lupus for 35 years, and then it sort of caused a few heart problems, and then the stroke. And due to the like immunosuppressive drugs that she'd been on for so long, her body couldn't fight cancer. And so cancer is ultimately what took her life. The more I think about like how sick my mom was and how she managed to get all of this done while sort of being stuck in her chair. Like she just sat in her chair and she crocheted and she crocheted and she crocheted, and then she would send a picture and she would say, what's next? One of the last few things that she said to me that were just really hard were that she still had so much art left to do with me. Oh, wow. For her, I will make sure that the work continues to be seen. I'll continue to share these collaborative efforts with my daughter, and teach her the value of fostering those relationships to keep her spirit alive. If people continue to talk about her and say her name, it feels more like she's here. And we'll just keep going for her.
So thank you for listening. That always makes me a little bit emotional. I really miss her. But yeah, I'll get started. And I think I'll start by talking a little bit about the maquettes that my mom and I created together before we began the larger project. So this one in particular is one of 4 maquettes we created as part of research. And so the reason we made these little ones is to just kind of get our ideas out there for larger works in the future, and so that we had a little bit of support material to apply for a project grant. And in late 2016, we learned that we were successful in our application, and we had received the asked amount from the Edmonton Arts Council to create this body of work. So that was really exciting. Yes, we made around 4 maquettes to give a sense of the materiality, and we started by kind of sketching them over a glass of wine. I created some pretty rough and provocative drawings, and then my mom would just crochet the shapes. Without a pattern, she would just kind of go for it. Then I would take the crocheted shapes and respond to them and transcribe them with another set of materials. And we did get to spend time together while making. However, most of it was done distantly through pretty hilarious text messages and FaceTime. And we would send each other updates of our work through text. And At this point, she was pretty sick, and so a lot of what she was doing was done from her chair. So most of the images that she sent me always included her toes. So these were definitely highlights of my week and getting these images. And yeah, I feel like I've actually spent my whole life collaborating with my mom, not just the, last couple years of her life. So that feels really special, and I feel really lucky. Uh, and so one year, it just kind of hit me at how amazingly talented she was, and which I'd already known since I was very little. But, um, anyways, we decided to collaborate, and I felt that with her knitting and crochet expertise and our history of collaboration, we could really be onto something. And so, immediately for me, I knew that the process for this body of work was much more important than the outcome. We spent a lot of time sharing stories and secrets and fears with each other. And we talked about our experiences as moms, women, daughters. And here she is pictured wearing the suit we collaborated on. So this is the beginning. We will see it evolve. And I think the funniest thing was that my dad was often her photographer. So that was pretty great. She would pose quite provocatively for him in these photos. And yeah, it was just like such a treat to get these. Um, for me, kind of looking back on these now, and what feels kind of sad to me is that like the the evident changes in her body as her illness progresses and as the costume grows, she kind of shrinks into it. And I've only really noticed this today while putting the slideshow together and kind of looking at the progression of the suit. And also, yeah, it's just really interesting and also heartbreaking. But we definitely did have a lot of fun. Here it is, growing and growing. And I think this project really helped us get through some pretty difficult times as we, all were trying to navigate her illness, not really knowing what was wrong. And not, just before, but especially after and mourning the loss of her. To be able to continue to share her legacy feels really special, and like we're still collaborating in some kind of way. And here's the final product. Striking a pose. And the funniest thing about this particular image is that when she would put this suit on, her personality would shift and she would pose provocatively with like her hands against the wall, looking back. And we had so much fun. And if you can kind of see at the bottom of the image here, uh, this picture went viral, but it kind of went like mostly viral on these weird fetish sites and under the search, just because you can crochet doesn't mean you should. So good. So this image is the series of sweaters pictured at the Nina Haggerty Center in Edmonton, Alberta. A friend of mine and who was curating the exhibition, Lana Whiskey Jack, invited me to be a part of it. And the title of the show was called The Wombs We Come From. I thought it was a perfect opportunity to share some of the work that my mom and I had done. So yeah, as I mentioned before in the video, my mom had lupus for over 30 years, but I don't think I've ever witnessed it let her, get her down. She was a very positive person, and she was kind of stuck to her chair creating this work, and some of the works were as long as 9 feet, by 3 feet wide. And also in the year that I lost her, she made 12 wearable hand knit sweaters for Christmas for all of us, 7 or so non-wearable sweaters, a blanket for my daughter, a mermaid tail, Christmas ornaments for everybody, 12 large scale sculptures, and a weird bodysuit. She would finish one work, and like I said before, she would throw it on the ground, send me a picture, and say, "What are we doing next?" And there was this, this sense of urgency in her. And at the time, I didn't know what that meant or why it was there, but I really loved it. This is again at the Nina Haggerty. We showed this series of sweaters. And these sweaters specifically speak directly to our own personal experiences as moms, daughters, a grandmother, as women, and also the complex relationships between mothers and daughters. And so with these sweaters, we kind of disclosed our secrets to each other and to you all through these sweaters. This one in particular says, watching my mom lose her beautiful knitting talent to Alzheimer's. And my mom made this one. She created this sweater that was essentially full of holes. And my mom was French, was a perfectionist when it came to her knit work. And however, once Alzheimer's kind of took over, what was once second nature no longer was. So her work would be full of holes, and she was really confused as to why. And the work my grandma would make was this sort of heartbreaking reflection of her emotional and physical state. And so, with that in mind, we were inspired to create this series of sweaters. This one I made, and it says, "I used to chew and spit the oatmeal you made for me every morning, sorry." With this entire series of work, we were really interested in also the collaborations that evolve naturally over time through the matrilineal line and how things are passed down from generation to generation. My mama taught my mom how to crochet, and my mom taught me, and now I'm able to try, and teach my daughter. And it's been a really special journey where art and life, kind of blend seamlessly. This one says, there is much left to mourn, but you can never know I miss who I thought you were. This was also a part of the Trex exhibition that traveled Alberta for 3 years and is framed in the gallery space. This one I think is maybe one of my favorites. It says, "My regret is not asking my mom how to make her peanut stitch." And she made this teeny little baby sweater in an attempt to try to recreate the peanut stitch. It was this really lovely stitch that my grandmother would always use when she made baby sweaters or baby blankets. And after my mom passed away, my dad and I actually spent a lot of time talking about it. And because the peanut stitch was used mostly in baby knitwear, um, he kind of opened up to me about a time where they were both really yearning for a baby, and it just wasn't happening for them. And they had a miscarriage quite far along into their pregnancy, and that baby would have been just just a few years older than myself. And although my mom did share some of that with me, and the heartbreak that came with that, my one regret would be not asking more questions about her process in making the sweaters and why. This one is another that I've thought about a lot. I had this exhibition up in St. Albert, and one of my mom's 5 sisters came, and we were looking at this one. And on the back side of this sweater that says "Reminders of My Great Childhood," she has all of her siblings' names stitched into the back of these strips of crochet, which kind of almost looks like a hand when you flip it over. And my auntie started to giggle when she flipped it over and saw her name. And she goes, "That little shit spelt my name wrong." And I just started laughing. And I was like, "What? What do you mean?" And she went on to explain that growing up, she would always misspell her name on purpose just to bug her. And so it was really great it was just a lovely way to learn a little bit more about my mom's process, and her insight and her cheeky thinking behind this particular sweater. This sweater I made after my mom passed away. Uh, and when I had my youngest daughter, Edie, it says, sorry, I just can't see it very well. The hardest part is realizing that you'll never meet her or be swayed in her arms. That's been a tough realization. Um, so yeah, I made that sweater in response to those feelings. And this one says, "It's my fault that you'll have to live every day with your existence in question." I made this one as well. This one my mom made. It was her concept and design, and she called it her worry sweater about, raising a teenage daughter. And so it says dating time, many sleepless nights, date rape, drugs, I think fights, uh, and so yeah, so she made this one, and then on some of the sweaters that she created, I would respond with my own set of text. So with a label that is meant to mimic like a clothing label. This one in particular says, "Sometimes I record our conversations." And I think that kind of speaks to uh, my own worries about her and when would be the last time that I would hear her voice. And this one she called her skeleton sweater. This sweater, she said, was made for all of us. This one says, "You make my heart soar." In the back, it says, I think it says, "My perfect daughter, my amazing grandchildren, my wonderful son in law, and my beautiful daughter in law." And my response on the tag says, "If only you knew." This one says, "Too many mouths to feed." I drew an image of this one and my mom just created it. Sometimes she would come up with the concept and the text for the work, and then other times I would draw an idea and she would make it. And then some of them I also crocheted. This little one was also made after she passed away as well. It was actually the label says, "No one asks to be born," and it was actually a comment in the guest book for a past showing of this work, and it really kind of resonated with me and stuck with me. Right after my mom passed away, I had 2 miscarriages, and I was really missing her and feeling like I could really just use one of her hugs. And yeah, I still could for sure. And this is an image of my mom and myself and my daughter at my mom's first ever art exhibition. So it was a really great evening. And she was just glowing and was so proud, so, so proud. And then shortly after my mom and I did The Wombs We Come From, um, a month after I lost her, I was a part of the Works Art and Design Festival with MATRILINEAL Threads. And I think that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. I was, however, so happy that my mom did know about this opportunity and a second exhibition. And it was lovely to hear from her how excited she was. So I made sure everything was perfect. For the duration of the festival, I performed every day wearing the suit that she made. And we made it not really knowing what would happen with it or what we would do with it. It was really just a fun process with a lot of laughs. And but I believe that through play and experimenting and process and following your intuition, that, you know, bigger ideas unfold. And I think that's kind of what happened here. So in my mourning of my mom, I spent a lot of time looking at old images of her holding me as a baby so delicately and lovingly. And I spent time studying how she held her hands when she would lovingly bathe me in a salad bowl on the counter. And I thought a lot about her new repetitive hand gestures that were bred out of discomfort and pain. And I thought about her gestures when she was healthy and hilarious. And so when my mom was really, really sick, I stayed with my mom and dad for a few weeks, and just kind of helped to care for her. And I would be up late watching a movie in my room, and all of a sudden the door would fly open and my mom would just be standing there and she would come in and she would lay down beside me and I would cover her up with a blanket, and she would you know, be tossing and turning, and she would hang her foot off the bed and bounce her foot so the whole bed would be shaking. And in 10 minutes she would get up and she would go back to her room, and then, you know, and an hour later she would be back, and we did that all night long. And so for, you know, the performance wearing the suit, I took those gestures and I performed them. I rocked back and forth with babies in my arms. I tapped my feet. I rubbed my wrists and I felt my face for numbness like she always did. That's a detail of the performance. And another. Here's kind of like a full installation shot at the Works Festival. It was outdoors, so we were in tents, and it was pretty small, so everything was really crammed together. Yeah. And my mom really, really, really wanted to make large hands, and so we did it. She did it. She kind of just went for it, and as she made the hands, she would write the pattern down, and so I was able to make the other hand. Um, Unfortunately, they're both right hands or both left hands. I meant to do the opposite, but it didn't quite work out. Um, and I guess, like, as I continue to reflect on this work and think about hands, they're, I think, really, you know, a really powerful symbol, especially considering the whole time we worked, my mom had carpal tunnel so badly in both hands that she had no feeling in her fingers. And she also had Raynaud's disease, but nevertheless, she persisted. What's next? It's pretty amazing. Here's another detail. And so since 2018, the work has traveled quite a bit. Here on the left is my dad and my youngest daughter, Edie, in Ottawa, being my studio assistants, installing matrilineal threads. She was about 7 weeks old when we installed, and it was right before COVID happened. Yeah. And it's so lovely that, you know, her name continues to travel actively, and uh, I'm thankful that her name is living on through myself and my daughters, and to those who are interested in hearing her story. Uh, it feels good because it almost feels like she isn't entirely gone, and she's still here. This is me in the suit. This is a work that I couldn't fit in the crates to ship to Annapolis Royal. It was really complicated and big. But I would say, for like, our process of making and working together was really intuitive, and we did do some sketching together, but for the most part, we really just allowed ourselves to riff with one another and gave ourselves to the process of making and just, each enjoying what each other had to bring to the table. And the process was, far more important than what was made. But I'm really proud of what we did. And I think yeah, it's great. And I'm glad we were able to do it. Here's another detail. Yeah, it feels so good to talk about this work. And I just want to thank ARTSPLACE Gallery and Sophie and Judy and Ted and everyone else involved in putting together the show and this talk since I couldn't be there. And thank you for the lovely opportunity to continue sharing my mom's story. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I think since we're such a small group,
Yeah.
maybe rather than using the chat box, if people have questions or comments, we could do that now. You can unmute your audio and just ask the questions. Thank you, Kasie. It's so personal, and I feel like I'm entering like a private realm of some kind. It's just beautiful that you share all that with people, and it must be extremely meaningful for you to share this with people you don't know. Here we are. It's the intimacy is incredible.
Yeah.
Is that what you do with most of the work that you create now? Is it as intimate as this exhibit?
Yeah, I would say my work follows, my personal life and my experiences, and yeah, and yeah, I think it's important because even if I could reach somebody who's going through a similar thing, or who's lost their mom, or who's grieving, or has a great relationship, or doesn't have a great relationship with their mother or parents. I don't know. I just think it's important, and yeah, I think it's important to talk about what you value and about life, and yeah.
Well, it's good to see art that's so close to daily life, like your everyday activity. Yeah, it's good.
Ted,
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Kasie. It was a show that made me smile, and I'm going to go back and see it again because it was not a quick tour, but I really want to take it in, and I found it a very powerful show, bittersweet, with a great deal of wit and humor, and now having the backstory to it, it makes it that much more relevant. And I would hope a lot more people see it because I think it's just a wonderful show. It speaks well of yourself and your mother, and art as life, and a life well lived.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Kasie, I would like to comment on this. Dealing with loss is not an easy thing, and it's not something that is ever over. I mean, you're constantly living with it, and to see the relationship of you and your mom, and the progression from your grandmother and your children, it's really a beautiful thing. And thank you so much for sharing this special relationship that you have.
Yeah.
So much.
How did you decide on taking this kind of direction in your art when you were in undergraduate school, or how did you decide on what medium to use and what you wanted to do?
Right. Well, I think I don't know. I think for me, like since I make work that's so personal and about, taboo topics or hard topics or things that people go through but don't talk about generally publicly, I think it's actually really healing because a lot of it is sewing and, you know, repetitive and monotonous and therapeutic in a way, even though it's very time consuming. So I think the process of making is, you know, the most important thing to me, as opposed to the outcome, if that makes any sense.
It does.
Yeah, I think in my undergrad, I actually really thought I wanted to be a painter. But I always found myself in painting class building things and like painting a couch and then saying it's a painting and or painting my husband's, you know, my children, myself, like, and calling it a painting. And they were like, maybe you should try sculpture class.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then it kind of took off from there. There's something about creating something that demands space and a physical presence that yeah, that I really like. I really like the labor intensive work and but also the really repetitive and monotonous kind of
Hmm.
the process.
There's also the elevating of what was considered something perhaps secondary, but elevating this and presenting it as an art form that is really important.
Right.
Yeah, I really like that too. I really like that genre where it crosses borders and, you know, and again, going back to your own personal life and your art. And I think your mom saw life as art too. And maybe you carried that on. And I just think it's wonderful. So
Thank you.
Yeah, as I mentioned to you earlier too, the high school kids that came through this afternoon were mesmerized by it. But Sophie has told me also that people that have come through the gallery, there's a number of people because they know it's a fiber arts show. There's a number of fiber artists that live in our community, and they've gone into the show and they're drawn in right away by the crochet, and then just like this teenager today, then they start to look a little bit harder, and their brows get furrowed, and they see the seriousness of some of it and the sense of loss and life, and then they walk away, and I think they may realize that, oh boy, you can really do a lot with this material, with crochet or knitting, that they may not have thought of before. So I think you've opened up some minds here.
Oh wow.
Which I think is encouraging. And I one other thing, and I'll let other people ask. I've got to mention Louise Bourgeois. Is she someone who has inspired you in her work? We have that giant spider, you know, at the National Gallery in Ottawa that's all about motherhood as well. So.
Yeah, no, I do. I love her work. She's definitely a force.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have other questions, people?
Where will you go from here? Do you have another project in mind? I'm sure you do. I live with an artist. There's always something brewing. Yeah. What's next?
I have several things coming up. I'm working on a project that's based off a series of photographs I did early on in COVID called Milk Diaries. And yeah, so my baby was just 3 months old when the pandemic hit, and I was having a lot of struggles with breastfeeding, and also you know, the realization that my mom wasn't here and would never meet my newest baby, and that I couldn't call her for advice and talk to her. And also I just had this anxiety and extreme, you know, postpartum anxiety about that was exacerbated by COVID. Terrified to get COVID and not be able to feed my baby. And so this series of photographs came about where I would get up every morning with Edie, and either before or after we would nurse, I would pump breast milk and put it in a bag. And on the bag of breast milk, I would record the date and a thought or a fear or anxiety that I was feeling that day. and then I would freeze it and I would take a picture of it. And it was just kind of, wasn't really anything at first. It was just kind of like, it was healing for me. I felt like, okay, I'm storing breast milk for my baby, and it's kind of like a diary. And my freezer is still full of them, but I took photographs, and then so I'm kind of doing a spin-off on that with some sculptural work. But it's early on in the works.
Oh, great.
Always the artist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so tied into your life. Like
Uh,
it's like part of your life. It's not separate at all. It's
yeah, it is a part. And I think that's the part that's the best part about it, is that I think it's healing. It's a thing, like it's a comfort, in times that are difficult. It's somewhere to go to. It's a diary, it's a record or a documentation of a certain in your life or a certain time in your life. And that's kind of how I like to think about my work.
Mm. Is this show going to travel beyond ARTSPLACE? Is it going anywhere else?
I hope so. I don't
Yeah,
have
I hope so
anywhere.
too.
Thank you. I don't have anywhere scheduled now. I've been applying, but as you all know, COVID has kind of changed the, course of the past couple of years. So we'll see. Hopefully I'll hear back soon and I'll have somewhere for it to go. But as of right now, no.
Okay.
I mean, some of the pieces in the show, the large sculptural pieces that are in the center of the gallery, not the sweaters that are on the wall, but these large pieces. I mean, they seem to have a life of their own in many ways. When we installed the show and filled that one center piece with fiberfill, it came to life. I mean, it's like it's almost like a body part in a way, right? I mean, that's, I think, what it suggests. And some of the other pieces around the room that look almost like body parts as well. That kind of sets the stage, I think, for a lot of the other work.
Yeah, we were definitely inspired by the human form and sticking to organic shapes, and and I guess like the wooden pieces too, and I guess none of the wooden pieces are there, but the works that do have wood, it was just a great contrast between the soft and the hard.
And the fake fur.
Yeah.
Was there any significance to the particular yarn you were using? In other words, was it an unraveled sweater of another wearer? Or was there any significance to the actual materials that you were recreating into something else, or no?
No. That's a lovely thought though. No, we just kind of, we would go to our local yarn store and go through everything and pick the yarn together, and
No,
But
okay.
no, that's a lovely thought. I will have to think about that more.
Can I ask a question? How does this, your relationship with your mother impact your current work? And what are you working on now? And is there a thread between this work and your continuing art practice?
Yeah, I think with the work I'm doing now, I think I try to, whether it's sculptural or I don't know, whether it's sculptural or not, I try to bring in my mom's corporal reality into my work, and I think no matter what I do or make, I think that will somehow come out, because she was a huge influence in my life, and a mentor, and I don't think I could help it. I think I work very intuitively and based off personal experiences, and so that's a really good question, but I don't I think whatever is going to happen is going to happen. And I'm just ready to embrace that and allow myself to kind of go where I need to go. But
anybody have any other questions? Yeah. Well, Kasie, I want to say thank you very much for doing this. And
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, we're really
Very helpful.
we're appreciating the exhibition a lot. So thank you very much for taking the time to share your thoughts and stories with us.
my
Yeah.
pleasure.
Thank you.
And
Bye.
best,
Thank you.
be well. I'll shut
Bye.
off. now. Goodbye, Susan. Bye, Wayne.
Okay.
Bye.
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 Bye. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank